Hello, welcome everyone to Ed Talks with Khan Academy. I'm Kristen DiCerbo, the Chief Learning Officer here at Khan Academy, and today I'm excited to talk to Marc Sternberg, who is the K-12 Education Program Director at the Walton Family Foundation. So we're looking forward to that conversation to talk a lot about COVID response and education and philanthropy as we think about what lies ahead for schools after the results of all of this COVID experience that we've all been through. Sal is going to be back on Friday. His guest will be chess world champion Magnus Carlsen, so look out for that. As we think about COVID, we also want to recognize some of the sponsors who have stepped up and helped us make it through some of the COVID times here at Khan Academy, including Bank of America, AT&T, Google.org, Novartis, Fastly, and General Motors. Thank you for your support. And with that, let's dive right in. So first, let me say welcome. Thanks for coming and joining us today.
It is a pleasure, Kristen, to be with you. I am no international chess champion, but I'm an education advocate par excellence, and I'll do my best to keep up.
Awesome. We all have our own strengths. So
I mentioned to you off air, I love chess though. So I'll be tuning in on Friday, you can be sure, and hopefully we'll go through some openings or I don't know, in-game strategy.
I can't wait to hear that conversation. I think it'll be good. But for everyone that is here today, first let's just kick off and tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us how you ended up in this position and a bit of your path to get here.
Great. Well, I'm happy to. And in all seriousness, thank you for having me. And thank you, Kristen, to you, to Sal, and to the entire Khan Academy family and team for the amazing work you guys have done for so many years, and especially, frankly, over the last year. I think we'll wind up talking a bit about that in our time together. My path into this role runs through the classroom. Right out of college, I took a job teaching. I work for the Walton Family Foundation, which is of course based in Bentonville, Arkansas. I am based in Brooklyn, and much of my life, my professional life before coming to Walton, was in service, public service to this city. As a teacher right out of college, as a school leader, a school founder, started a high school that I led for 6 years in the Bronx Lab School. And then as a policymaker, serving as a deputy to Chancellor Klein in the last term of the Bloomberg administration. So I cut my teeth as a pedagogue. Working with a group of students, then with a school community, and then in service to New York City at the policy level, all of which have been kind of great preparation for this work with the Waltons, thinking about education on the national stage.
That's great. Tell us just a little bit about founding a school. What prompted that, and what were you thinking as you were thinking this is a different experience or a new way of thinking about school that you wanted to take on?
Well, it came from a lot of it came from a desire to have impact, which is a little bit in my DNA of sort of just being a doer. Kind of the match that lit the fire, as it were, for the school was my teaching experience, where I sort of observed what many educators in your community, I'm sure, feel. Incredible passion and energy and potential of my students, who probably taught me a lot more in my years of teaching than especially those early years, than I was able to teach them. A sense of wanting to build a school community in the Bronx, especially that would be there for students and help them meet their full potential. And I think fair to say, starting teaching in the mid-90s in the Bronx, a sense that we could just do better, a sense that schools were too often mixed about how they were making decisions. My school had 3 principals in the years I was there. So I experienced kind of, on the one hand, this radical sense of potential for my students who were just waiting, in a sense. And so I experienced both the wonders of that, but also the tragedy of that, and felt that coming, there was a brief interlude of grad school between teaching and coming back to start the school. And I felt like, that was my calling. I was called back to, to come and try to craft something very different for high school students. I have a high school student of my own who's walking into the room right now to visit his dog. So
welcome to life during COVID times. Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully, just keeping it real for your viewers. This was also at a moment, closing the door. Is that a moment of remarkable kind of policy opportunity and a window of leadership for New York City and its schools that, I view as singular, where, the city's mayor and chancellor looked out at the landscape of options and saw a cohort of schools that had been failing students for decades, with graduation rates in the teens and 20s, and basically like sick and tired of being sick and tired, and looking for a round of entrepreneurs to come in and think about a better path forward.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Tell me a little bit more about your role now at the foundation and what that entails, what you do.
Well, education's been a huge pillar of the Walton family's philanthropic interest for 30 years, long before I got here, and far into the future. The family has cared about this work. It's been the center of their philanthropic strategy, and that's really about a belief, first, that education matters, that it is a central pillar in helping communities and families and students live, a self-determined life and reach their full potential, and a sense that so much of what we can do is unlock the potential both of students and of educators. The center of our strategy is looking to teachers and looking to educators, looking to folks who know the work the best, because they've done it and they've lived it, for a round of ideas about how schools and classrooms can work differently. And so it's really been the privilege of a lifetime to be in a position to help the family do its work.
So tell me a little bit about what you do. So are you looking for opportunities and groups that you want to support? Yeah. What does that look like? Yeah.
Well, so we are focused on, I would say a few key pillars. One, at the center of our work is the school and a quality school. So a lot of what we've done over the years and what we'll continue to do is find educators who have ideas of a different kind of school, what the school could be, whether that's a new charter school, a new public school, but elevating talented educators who have in mind to start a school or to become school leaders and find their path to school leadership. Of course, that is important. It requires cohorts of educators, folks who want to come into the profession. So investing in pipelines into the profession, investing in community advocacy and community voice. So to help communities develop a vision and a voice about what school can look like, how school can meet the needs of their community, which I think in this moment of all moments is critically important. And I think also critical at this moment is an investment in kind of what the future of learning can look like, what the future of the classroom can be. So a deep focus, we apply a deep focus on kind of broadly innovation in teaching and innovation in kind of school models and what the future can look like.
Lots to follow up on there. So let me start with, though, thinking about, you said, especially in these times, and as we think about as COVID hit, what did you see as, how you could bring your resources to what was happening as COVID started just about a year ago this week? We started to see a lot of that impact.
Well, I mean, our first instinct, look, I think like everybody, it took us a minute to kind of understand the scope of this. The fact that we are now, look, I hope at the end, and I hope past the point of thinking about, questions like how many days a week are our kids going to be in school, or when can we get kids back into the building? I'm living in New York City, and what I can report to your listeners that in this town, we're sort of seeing the other side of that discussion. But at the beginning, I think we all thought, maybe like you did, that this was going to be something to muddle through for the rest of the school year. So that we're now talking, we're deep into the second full school year of confronting this is just remarkable. I would characterize the work we have done in the wake of COVID in parts. First was, look, just trying to be a resource for leaders in folks we've worked with and in the cities in which we've worked. So providing some flexibility around resources and even some additional resources, dollars, so that school leaders can do the things that, frankly, the people we're privileged to work with, we found them doing, like delivering books and materials home, delivering meals home, making sure that, families in their community had hotspots to get online when instruction moved online. So just the first order of business for us was just providing extra resource to meet the moment. And there was never, we knew we could never do everything, but we needed to do something. So that was one. Is that
extra hotspots? That's been for us because obviously we are an education technology organization, and we struggle with this. Part of equity is actually getting the resources to the students who need it most, and we, are always thinking about, gosh, there's this whole group of students we can't reach because they don't have that connectivity. So have you guys been working on that issue?
We have, and that's sort of a bridge to the second big part of what we've done, and that's sort of thinking about, through an advocacy lens, thinking about how we can address the needs that became so clear and acute at the moment. And at the top of that list was access to to clear broadband and kind of the connectivity and even where. I think we've got good news coming on this, Kristen. I think my understanding is that the legislation that is making its way to the president's desk includes some good news for families that are living on the wrong side of the digital track. So that's encouraging, and we're ready to celebrate that. It's also, I think you'd agree, a moment to just pause and sort of acknowledge that there are still families in this country that have, it's not as they don't have access to high-speed internet. They have lived through the last 12 months without high-speed internet. And I'd like to think that there is, I'm thrilled that there's a solution, and we know that just because there's federal resource for this, the problem is not solved. There's a lot of work to do to get this, to get those dollars to the right places and to build solutions that are permanent. I guess my reflection on this is that, this experience has raised awareness of problems like this, and I think generated a lot of public will to solve those problems. I guess what I want to express to your viewers is I hope we can hold on to the urgency we feel, that we don't sort of get back to life as usual and forget the urgency of many of these challenges, which frankly before COVID, let's just say they predated COVID and we tolerated them before COVID. So as we move back to life as usual, I hope that we can hold on to, kind of the urgency of solving some of these big problems.
Definitely. So thinking about that future, what do you think as we look forward are some of the things that you see may change permanently in education from where we are now?
Well, I think I'd make a few points here. I do think that this is a moment to grab for a different kind of future in the classroom. And, that future has always been something we've been able to talk about as long as I've been in the work, from when I was a classroom teacher to a school leader to a policy guy. But it has always been just over the horizon. And I would credit Khan Academy and Saul and all of your collective work as helping us kind of like see it more clearly. But I think you'd agree, it's just been like right over the edge.
As someone who's been doing this for more years than I want to say, yes, it has always been right over the edge.
Well, so, I mean, just generally speaking, this needs to be a moment when we grab it. And we grab it and run toward it where like we understand it, not as something nice to have, but a necessity for the equity agenda, for the work of like honestly lifting up the teaching profession. I mean, you've seen the data, Kristen. We'll see if it holds, but right now 1 in 5 teachers are telling us they're not coming back to the classroom, and that's already like on top of a moment for a decade when one of the critical challenges is attracting and retaining quality talent in the classroom. So we've got to make the profession more sustainable, and we've got to help teachers be more effective. We got to like lift up student learning. Like there are big leaps forward that need to happen if we're going to help schools meet their promise. And software-based solutions need to be a part of that. They absolutely and I think a close observer might say that despite some great progress over the last decade, it just hasn't happened. In some ways, teachers are telling us that the profession has gotten harder, not easier. So this is a moment when we've got to reach over that horizon, develop solutions, look to teachers and entrepreneurs to help us figure out what those are, and bring more coherence to the teaching and learning experience. So that is, I mean, I'm speaking maybe more in generalities than you'd like me to, but like that's our thesis, and we're excited to do our part.
Yeah, so we've got a question that kind of leads to that from Facebook. Lori Beth Ford Gerald says, please define success for students, teachers, and schools. And I think that's an interesting question to think about. What is, if we talk about wanting to see the, changes in teachers and students, and what is success? How do we define success?
Well, I mean, for us, that success is about this idea of self-determination, that school is going to prepare you for, to lead the life you want to lead. And I think that's got to be at the student level. We've got to be focused on skill development and developing kind of habits of mind and content mastery and basic skills in numeracy and literacy and critical thinking that prepare students for, can you hear me? Sorry,
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good. Sorry. So skill development and mastery, content, content mastery. I think we also need to attend to the social and emotional health of our students as well. I will say that the last year has been a massive reminder, and I'll say more candidly, a setback for the children in this country.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have to confront that as a country and put front and center kind of the emotional well-being of students when we think about success. Now, I'd like to believe that that these things are not mutually exclusive, that the idea of developing hard skills that we know are important for a life well led, for this idea of self-determination, of being literate and numerate at the highest levels, are actually quite consistent with the idea of like emotional health and well-being. So I think when I think about student success, those are the things I think about. When I think about teacher success, I think about moving educators to a place where they are focused exclusively on human-centered elements of pedagogy, where we are developing tools in the classroom that work harder for teachers, that make their jobs and their lives easier, that get them faster to the work of supporting student learning, which is why the teacher joins the profession. So if we can do that, they're more satisfied, they're more effective, their time and energy are more focused and centered on the things that are of highest value. And I think if we're doing that at scale, we're lifting the profession up. So those are the first thoughts that come to mind.
Yeah. You talked about self-determination for students doing what they want to do. I also know that in some of the things that you talk about in terms of the types of innovations you're looking for, you talk about community-driven or community demand. How do you bring that into the work that you do? And, how do you hear the community demand or listen to it?
Small conversations that are like kitchen table discussions with folks who have the most at stake, who are closest to the action in their communities, whether it's in the South or in the Pacific Northwest, and we know there's lots in common across communities, but all of these problems are super local. So for us, this has been honestly about building a muscle that is a listening muscle, which doesn't mean that we're leaving our experience and our points of view behind, the things that we've learned. We're in fact bringing those with us into these conversations, but this is classic organizing. And I will say, as someone who's been in philanthropy a little while, well, I said it, a skill that we've got to build. It is not the natural instinct of philanthropy to listen first and act second. So that's the idea.
Yeah.
Sort of a go slow to go fast, Kristen.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know that when you listen, sometimes you hear lots of conflicting viewpoints. Like I think the school reopening has been a case in point about that, where different people have really different views and think about things in different ways, and you have different stakeholders with different interests. How do you navigate that and kind of try to bring people together?
This is the trick and the risk. A lot of good examples of well-intentioned change agendas that fall apart because they reach for, absolute kumbaya consensus, and that can't be what this is about. I think this is about balancing the patience of listening with the urgency of action, and orientation on a set of problems that, that can be solved, and that left unsolved have a kind of cascading pernicious effect. So it's not, this is not an exercise of, everybody standing in a circle holding hands and agreeing on everything. This is about, building an understanding of the local nature of the problem. In this case, in your instance, how do we get kids back into school? And if we can't, how do we do everything we can to make sure that on the other side of this, we're not confronting a learning loss challenge that we can't surmount? Broadly, I mean, that is a micro version of the problem that Walton has been solving for 30 years. How can we get a better school and a better educational experience in reach for more students in this community? We're clear that that's our orientation, and we're looking for local partners who have, frankly, better ideas about how to do that, because they're close to the problem and have lived it in their homes, and we hope they can invite us in to be a resource as they try to solve that problem.
Great. So you talked about, innovation and community.
Yeah.
Tell us some things that you're excited about, or some innovative things that you're seeing or working on that excite you.
Well, I'll say, let me start with assessment and kind of accountability. I hesitate to mention the word. It's like a 4-letter word these days.
Yeah.
I'll just name this as a vertical that requires new thinking and like a deep attention to what comes next. And what I'm very clear on, that is frankly keeping me up at night and so many advocates up at night, is just how perilous the moment is for the country as it relates to data collection and student performance. I mean, even absent COVID, we're confronting, decision points at the state and federal level of whether we should be in the business of collecting students' data that allows us to have kind of comparability to know how one set of students is doing relative to another set of students. And then COVID happens, and we're now looking at 2 consecutive school years where we're not sure what kind of data we're going to have. I believe that is a massive threat to the equity agenda, likes of which, there just aren't many other threats that rise to that level of urgency. This, to me, is an innovation challenge. We are having a fight in this country, in the 4 corners of our little K-12 community, Kristen, about whether we should test. And that's an important discussion that I hope lands in the right place. What we ought to be doing is thinking about novel ways to capture what students know, and to capture, the full spectrum of the things we care about as it relates to student performance. And this gets back to your question earlier, the listener's question, their social and emotional health, their content mastery, their skill development. This sort of imagine a day
Are we back? Apologies for technical difficulties.
Can you hear me?
All right. I can. All right.
Hello?
Woo. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Everyone, this is 2021 live streams.
Uh-oh.
All
Can you hear me
right.
now?
I can
Can you hear me, Kristen?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Yeah, are
Oh,
we
dear.
back? Okay.
We're back. Can you hear me
We
now?
are
All right,
actually
good, good, good.
at time. We're just about at time, so I think we're going to leave it there. Apologies for the last couple minutes of technical difficulties here to all of those folks who are listening. Marc, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the work that you're doing to support learners and learning in these times.
Great. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you. Goodbye to all of our listeners, and we look forward to seeing you on Friday.